Welcome to another episode of Relentlessly Resilient, where real people share real-life experiences and the tools they've developed to move forward and live their best life. I'm Jennie Taylor.
And I'm Michelle Scharf. We are going to have part 2 of an episode that I'm super stoked and excited about. Our number one fan, that's just what I'm going to call you. Yay! Because she calls and discusses my show with me, is Linda Scharf, my sister-in-law. And she shared with us in part 1 about her first marriage to her love of her life, John. Fell madly, passionately in love with this young man, and almost 6 months after they were married, he passed away with no particular reason, was able to be identified, and left her 25, active LDS, sealed to a husband, which they shared no children with, and now a widow. And so what does that mean for a young 25-year-old woman in the LDS faith to be sealed to a partner, and then how does that impact your future? Like, do you get remarried? How does that work out? Well, you do, because obviously you're my sister-in-law, so you do remarry. She's married to my brother-in-law, David Scharf, which actually is the best of all of the Scharf boys. I think so. 100%. I say that 100%, right? I mean, I love Dave. I always have. I've known him since he was like 11. He was just a baby when I came into the family, but he is by far my favorite. He has always had the sweetest heart, kindest, so compassionate, and very much comfortable and okay with his emotions and feelings, which is a rare trait in that family. And that is why he remains my favorite. It is the truth, though. Wouldn't you agree with me?
He's very, yeah.
Not that there are other girls in the family that are very much in touch with their feelings, but I'm just saying for all of the men in that family.
I think for men in general.
Yeah.
Kind of across the board. Men don't really talk about their feelings. Dave is just comfortable in his own skin.
Yeah.
But I love that.
Yeah. When Dave and his first wife were going through things, we spent a lot of time on the phone. We talked constantly, several times a week, hours at a time. He was in so much grief and trying to figure out. We were here in Utah. He was living in Southern California at the time. And, he was trying to figure out how to raise these 2 kids. The mom had abandoned the kids and just left, really just was not engaged and for several years after she left. And it was a rough time. It was a hard time for him, but he was always really able to articulate his feelings. And I feel like in a lot of ways that helped him move forward in a much healthier way.
Yeah.
That's my take on things.
Okay, so now I'm curious to hear how your worlds collided. Did your worlds collide? I don't know.
They did collide.
So, Michelle, you knew Dave from the time he was a young man. You were married to John.
Married to John.
Dave grew up, got married, had a wife, had a couple of children.
And I was very close to her as well. I attended the birth of her first child and wasn't able to be there for the second, but I was pregnant at the time with a child. My son was actually born 6 weeks after.
Before?
So they're very close.
Before.
Before. Mine was born before, and then we ended up actually driving 6 weeks after Evan was born, and we blessed the boys together.
So we've got a little background on Dave.
Yeah.
We know that he was married and divorced. He's got these 2 young children. We've got a little bit of background on Linda. If you missed the previous episode, go back and hear it. You'll want to hear about this newlywed widow and her vivacious personality. And she can laugh through the tears and has this, I think it's contagious. I'm sitting in the room with you and going, man, my outlook on life is way better now that I'm here with you.
Yeah.
So Linda, tell us. We know a little about you. We know a little about Dave. How did your worlds come together? And walk us through going from that widowhood into opening yourself to a new relationship and remarriage and family and things.
Well, our story is actually my favorite story.
Yeah.
One evening.
It's actually a great story. I can't wait to hear it again.
One evening, I showed up for our scripture study class, and I had brought a sandwich from my favorite place, Italia Deli. And I tell you what, I'd go there right now if I could. That place is so delicious.
Were you still living in California then?
Yes,
at the time?
California, living the dream. Anyways, Dave sits next to me.
This was in Simi Valley, right?
Yeah, Simi Valley.
Simi.
And I probably introduced myself to him, and then I proceeded to tell him how delicious my sandwich was. I said, this sandwich is so good that if you put a piece of it on your forehead, your tongue would literally beat you to death trying to get to it. It's that good. And I am pretty sure I was instantaneously his number one reason for why he did not want to be there.
He's like, what have I gotten myself into?
He's like, this is why I don't want to be single, because of that. Anyway, because my friends and I were so inclusive, we invited Dave to come to all of the activities going on before I said that we had stuff going on all week long. And, because he was the father to Kylie and Evan, they were rightfully his priority. So he came to some things and others he didn't. And I'll tell you right now, I had absolutely zero interest in Dave. None whatsoever. In fact, he dated my best friend, Angela Zeman. She's Zeman now. Angela Frederick. And I fully supported this. Angela had a son. Dave had 2 kids. I mean, I had their whole happily ever after planned out.
That's awesome.
And it was going to be so good. And then it didn't work out. And so I'd known Dave for about 10 months when I found myself needing a date. And to my surprise, we had a lovely time. Like I really had no expectations for this date. I just needed one. And the next day, I had asked him if he would help me get some new tires for my car because I did not want to be taken advantage for my ignorance. And they always try to sell you things that you don't want or don't need. And Dave's a car guy.
It runs in the family.
It
Cars.
does.
Big, strong, Scharf men and cars.
Yes.
Engines. Yeah.
Fast cars.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, he races. Yes, he does.
Yes.
They all do.
So we went on our date like on a Friday night, and the next day was Saturday, was the day he had said he would help me with my tires. And so we went out, and it was like the perfect family day. It's like I had these glasses on, I couldn't see. The kids were being angelic, shall we say angelic.
So he came with his kids to help you get your tires.
Yeah, and then
taken
he
care
needed
of.
stuff for his car too. So it was like, we just swapped cars while we were waiting for everything to go. And then later that evening, we went to a Christmas party at the bishop's house. And, Dave was there with his kids. And it wasn't like we were sitting there, just gazing into each other's eyes from across the room or even right next to each other. We're just at a party with other people. It wasn't like, we were together or anything. Well, later that night after the party, he asked me if I wanted to go back to his house to watch a movie. It was Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one. Ooh. This is how old I am now.
Vintage.
And so I went back to his house and he kissed me that night. And I tell you something right now is that I felt a peace rest on me. It's not very often. I don't know. You just can kiss random people and just, feel peaceful about it. I don't know. Maybe lots of people feel peaceful. But I
did not feel as if you betrayed your first husband, which is what
No.
you've been worried about in
Yes.
episode 1, that someday you would betray by loving again.
Yes.
You did not feel that.
No, I didn't. In fact, I got 4 hours of sleep that night, and I woke up the next day thinking that if I married him, that every single prayer that had been given to me and every prayer that I had offered for myself since my husband died would be answered in full by marrying him.
Wow.
And then I felt stupid for thinking this because we've been on one date and we kissed one time, and I'm over here.
Like, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yes. And then that day was Sunday, so I went to church, and I had 2 people track me in from the time I walked through the door. They just told me that the bishop wanted to talk to me. And so I'm on my way down the hall, and then somebody else is like, the bishop wants to talk to you. And I'm like, I'm coming. I'm on my way. So I get to the bishop's office, and I'm just kind of shooting the breeze. And when I don't get very good sleep, like I didn't that night, my mouth hangs open and I stutter. I cannot get a single word out, just straight. And I said, I'm sorry, Bishop. I did not get very good sleep last night. And he goes, neither did I. And I was like, well,
Sorry?
do you mind if I tell you something? And he goes, I really wish you would. And I said, well, last night, Dave Scharf and I decided that we like each other. And he goes, I know. And I'm thinking, how do you know? We decided after we left your house, after the party. And then I said, well, I don't know. I just have this really strange, peaceful feeling about the whole thing. And he goes, so do I. This just floored me. I'm already feeling stupid. We had one date and one kiss, and I'm like planning our marriage in my brain. And here's now the bishop
And now
supporting.
with the bishop, yeah.
Yeah, he's fully supporting my plans. And the following Tuesday, we went on a double date to the Los Angeles Temple with our friends David Zeman and Angela Frederick, who were right at this point secretly engaged. The bishop was also instrumental in their union. This guy was amazing.
Was this a singles ward?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's trying to match you all up.
Oh my, he had like a sixth sense. He was fantastic. Anyways, we're at the temple. We were sitting in a room together, separate from our friends. It was quiet in there. And I just felt so strongly that he needed to tell me right now that he loves me. And
did you tell him that?
Yeah, he didn't do it. I was waiting. So I'm like, I'm feeling this thing. And no, he didn't do it. So then now it's my responsibility. I have to do it. And so I looked at him and I just said, Dave, I think I love you. And he looked at me and he said, well, you know what that means then? That was our getting engaged. Oh. Like, it wasn't like he got down on one knee or anything. It was, I mean, I think we both were like deer in the headlight, shocked, like, what is happening here so fast? And I was on this high. It was amazing. And then I started thinking for a second. So that's it. Like, there's no like whirlwind romance. There's no really build up to anything. It was just like God put us together and said, all right, you two. So here I'm on this high and we're driving home with our friends. So it wasn't like we could really talk about anything. And then the plane was crashing. It was coming down hard and fast. and then I had to just ask him a question, the important question, the question that all important people should be asking. We got back to his house and our friends left. And I just said, Dave, do you have life insurance?
because that's what every widower.
Only a widow. Absolutely.
People always want your advice, when you go to weddings. And I'm like, life insurance. Don't underestimate. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And buy twice as much as you think you need.
Right. So he did have life insurance. So then we could proceed with these shenanigans. That was okay moving forward. But I thought, oh my gosh, life is so hard. I don't want to do that again. But if there's money, that could. So I also told him that since we didn't really date before we got married, that he had to date me for the rest of my life. And I have to say, he has done an excellent job of that.
So did you get married right away after that?
We dated for 5 days and got engaged. He still had a date with somebody else, like planned when we got engaged. I told him he could go with her if he wanted, but he figured since he was going to marry me,
You probably shouldn't date other people
fine.
At this point.
I'll just cancel that. And then, anyway, 7 weeks later, we were married.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, so can I ask, Michelle, from your outsider family perspective, were you guys supportive of this? I mean, that's very fast.
I was very supportive of this.
You were. You could just feel like this is right. This is good. We're going to run with this.
They came to Utah. I can't remember when you came to Utah, but it was before you got married.
Yeah, he actually came out at Christmas time to meet my family.
Oh, okay.
When the first kiss was at the Christmas party. So still the same Christmas season.
By our house.
Yeah.
So you must have stopped by our house there, and that's when we went to Target.
Yep.
And no, I fell in love with her immediately. And Dave's first wife's energy level was never very high. And Dave is a very calm, mellow, very chill person anyway. And her just bigger than life presence, I thought, this is so good for him. This is so good. And I was just really excited. I never had a question at all. I don't know what the rest of the family thought. We didn't talk about it.
But I'm amazing, obviously.
But you could recognize it right away. This was a beautiful addition to his life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right, Linda, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we want to hear about newlywed life the second time. Is that a thing?
Yeah,
we'll be right back. All right, so you and Dave had known each other for close to a year, but dated 5 days, married 7 weeks later. Now what?
Well, the week that we got married, I had strep throat, so that was awesome. I had a really hard time just because I was sick, not being able to pack up my things and get out of the room that I was renting. And so my family came over and they very unceremoniously ripped everything that was precious off of my walls. John was an artist, right? And he had made all these beautiful things for me. And it all just came off the walls and into boxes. And I just wanted to die. This is the part where I was, the betrayal. I didn't know how John would feel about me putting anything up at the house we lived together. And Dave also had emotional things that he was working through. His marriage had fallen apart. He was over there picking up the pieces of his life. And one thing that I have to say that I was really grateful for was that Dave was totally different than John. Brilliant, but just in other ways. Like I mentioned before, he's into cars. That cannot be overstated.
Nope.
Dave is a really great person to talk to. He's mentioned many times about how his parents did lots of self-help courses when he was very young. And they would play these tapes in the background. And here he is as a little kid listening to these self-help tapes. And he'd think to himself, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So he always says that he got more out of it than anybody.
100% he did. I will testify. I'm sorry if the rest of the family is listening to this, but I can testify. I think that he gained the most out of that.
Dave definitely is a very wise person. And he's the kind of person that just really makes life happen. And I love that about him. So you said you had met Dave when he was 11. When Dave was 11 years old, he wanted to earn some money.
He actually might have been 9. I have to go back.
Well,
yeah, he was young.
Anyways, he was 11 and he wanted to earn some money, maybe to buy a 4-wheeler or something. And so somebody paid him to paint the entire outside of their house. Can you imagine giving any 11-year-old a can of paint and a paintbrush and say, hey, make this look pretty?
No, because I have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, and there's no way.
Make sure you stay in the lines.
Yeah. This is very common for this family, I will say, though. Like, all of the boys are very entrepreneurial.
Everybody in the family is entrepreneurial.
Yeah, actually, everybody is. Yeah, nobody
not one of them is
employed by someone else.
They have all been, yes. Yeah. The tapes worked on everybody.
I might need to get a set of those.
Anyway, so he did such a good job painting the outside of this house that these people then paid him to paint the entire inside of the house.
What?
I know.
Wow.
Crazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, it's great.
When he was 18 years old, he got his contractor's license and he found it very difficult to sell jobs. This is another thing that I think is so brilliant about Dave is he had this skill. He became a roofing contractor and he was going to, go out and make money. And nobody would buy from him. He had a hard time selling the jobs. So he went out and he found somebody in their 40s to be a sales guy for him because, older, wiser. And this guy would go out and sell the jobs, and then Dave would show up with his crew to rip off the roof and start putting a new one on. And then the people would say, and where's the owner of the company? And the sales guy would say, oh, it's this guy right here. And then they would be like, that's a kid. But at this point, they had signed contracts, so they were in it to win it.
That's a kid.
Yeah. No, he was 18. Did you not catch that? He was 18 years old.
But that's
and he
still
was a roofing contractor.
That's a kid.
That's what I'm thinking. That's still
I know.
a kid.
It is a kid. But, I mean, can you imagine?
No.
You're like, he's going to rip my roof off my house?
Wait, yeah, you're going to do what?
Yeah.
And I'm going to pay you how many dollars to do
This
it?
better not have any leaks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went from being single and only having to worry about myself to being a wife and a stepmom instantaneously. I went from activities every day to almost no social life whatsoever. I was shell-shocked into family life, potty training and making meals and all the things.
And a lot more laundry.
Instamom.
I know.
And John's not here to do it.
A little bit of, angry phase of grief right there. Whose laundry is this? And both times I got married, I went through a bit of a depression. And I think that this is normal. And most people go through this, whether they say anything or not, because here I am again, trying to figure out who I am in this situation. And it might really sound easy if you're not in it. It's very easy to tell people, so easy. You've got this or that going on. But when you're in the thick of things, it's basically clear as mud. So once we were visiting, newly after we were married, we were visiting Dave's family in Northern California, and his sister Jennifer asked me a question about my marriage to John. And we both watched Dave shut down hardcore. And over the years, Dave and I have spent a lot of time talking about the particulars of our situation, not being sealed to Dave, kids, who's sealed to who. The conclusion that we've come to is that God is in charge and that we both really take comfort in that. So
what was the question that she asked? I don't think I've heard this story.
I don't remember. It just was something about my husband, John. But I don't remember the particulars.
But it was hard for Dave to sit through that.
We both watched him go from being alert and attentive to what was going on to just kind of like glossy-eyed, staring at the ground.
Because I remember when you were telling me your story and he was there, he seemed fine with it. But I do remember I did ask you, I was super active at the time, and I was like, well, what is this going to mean? Like, he already has kids. You don't have kids with this other guy. Are you going to break your ceiling? Like, I had asked you that, and you're like, nope, I'm not breaking my ceiling.
Can't betray. Right? And this is where the peace comes in and letting God be in charge, because if it feels right to be with John, fine. If it feels right to be with Dave, fine. I'm happy to let someone else decide that, someone who's a lot smarter than I am. So right from the get-go, though, I set some pretty unrealistic expectations for myself. I decided I was going to be an amazing stepmom and that we are all going to get along. And I'm going to get those kids into shape and they are going to listen the first time and never talk back. You know, all the good ideas when you make stuff up in your brain. I'm so good at that. I found quickly, I really like myself as a person. I enjoy who I am, but I found quickly that I did not like who I became around my kids. And unconsciously, I found that I began to look for things to be mad at. And it's just natural. Living with people, things happen and things annoy you. And here I've got these tiny humans, and then they would do something, and I think, that bothers me. And then somebody, same person, different person, do something else. And I think, that is really annoying. And it just was a totally subconscious. I didn't even realize it. And then next thing you know, I am looking for, and then I'm really angry. And I began to carry around a heaviness and a dread for when they were coming home. I found myself in arguments constantly with tiny humans. I mean, how did that even happen? I went from being totally in charge of my life to all of a sudden I am losing an argument right now.
To a tiny human.
Yeah. You're 6. How did we get here? I've stooped to your level. I don't even know what's happening now. And then also being a glutton for punishment, I noticed that, my biological clock was ticking. So Dave was not so excited because this is basically where his marriage fell apart. She suffered severe postpartum after the kids were born. And so he was not excited to add children to the family. It brought up really a lot of angst for him. And after, I had Hayden, my oldest son, he had a hard time, I think, bonding with the baby, holding the baby. The baby would cry. He'd give it back. He doesn't want me. And that happened with Jessie too. And then I think finally after Rachel was born, she's my third. After Rachel was born, I think he realized that I was going to still stick around.
So how many children do you have together?
We have 6.
You have 6 and then the 2, so there's 8.
No, total.
Oh, so you biologically birthed 4.
4.
But you mother 6. Okay.
Yes.
Hayden, Jessie, Rachel, and Lily.
Yes.
And Lily is just, she's a redhead. So
that says it all.
Yeah. So you should know. You should know.
Some things that Dave and I have talked a lot about is how my first husband is out of the picture, right? He's not over there causing any problems, but dealing with an ex-spouse, I think, is like playing the game Battleship. I'm sending a missile to B5. Did I hit their tugboat? Submarine? Paddleboard? Anything? And, it's like, you're holding your cards close to your vest. And also that being a step-parent is an easy person to be angry at.
Yeah.
In this situation, I'm an innocent bystander in what happened to their family. But at times, I was seen as the reason their parents weren't together anymore. And so that was really hard. I mean, just knowing that's how they feel and knowing that that's not the truth of it, but then also not really being able to explain, I didn't have anything to do with that. I'm so sorry this happened in your life. Also, I was the only one that got to deal with them all day because their dad was working.
That's at work.
pretty quickly after we got married, we decided I was worth more money not working than I was working. So that was also hard because I never realized what a huge social outlet work was for me. And then here are these precious kids, and they were so angry. And that's really kind of hard to see, angry babies. And they were also
angry for things out of their control.
Yeah, and then also not even realizing why they were they didn't even know why they were angry.
I don't even think that they knew they were angry. They were just
right.
That was their
angry.
existence.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was really hard. That was hard dealing with that and then my anger came, and I'm noticing all these things that annoy me. So there just was a lot of anger thrown into the pot.
There
now,
was.
After a few years, I realized that I was doing that, and I had to just make a conscious choice. You know what? There are kids. This is a kid thing. It's okay. It's okay to not get mad at that. And I have to
You don't have to be on the 6-year-old's level.
No, there was nobody to tell me that.
Who gave you permission to not be 6?
I stopped seeing the therapist. That was a bad idea. Anyways, they were going back and forth constantly. And I had to say also for kids, that is exhausting. That's so hard. There is never any rest. And when the kids were in their teens, their mom said that we could just have them. And we moved to Utah. So that was hard on everybody because we used to have a break from each other. They'd go for a couple of days and then they'd come back for a couple of days. And so now we just were constantly in each other's faces. There's no reprieve for anyone. That was really hard. And during this time, I was having a nervous breakdown. Things were pretty bad to the point where police were needing to be called. And it wasn't just once, it was multiple times. Property damage had happened, and we were needing to protect people from getting hurt. So there was a lot of yelling and crying by everyone, the offended, the offender, the innocent, and it was really just kind of an unbearable point in our lives. And there were a lot of consequences that were being shelled out naturally. But I spent a lot of this time specifically praying and seeking divine answers. And I just want you to know that there were a lot of answers that came.
With that, we're going to take a break, and we will be right back to catch up with you where this all leads. Incredible story. It's never easy, right? Life is never 1, 2, 3. Let's just have the good times roll. It would be so nice. It would be so nice. And we're back with my sister-in-law, Linda Scharf. You've been through so many challenges, and it would be so nice to hear. And we married and we lived happily ever after.
It was so easy.
It was so easy. And it's been just a joy. And unfortunately, that's just not the way life ever works out for any of us, really.
I don't think so. No.
I don't think so either. That's why I wanted to do the show. That's why you listen to the show. You're like, yes, everyone, we're all in this mess together. And it would be great if we could tap into that to realize I'm doing hard things, you're doing hard things, you're doing hard things. We can all do these hard things together, but remember that maybe we need to give each other a little bit of allowance when we're on the road, when we're in the grocery store.
With ourselves.
Yeah, be kind to ourselves, right?
With the tiny people we live with.
Yeah, with the little people that have their own grief and their own sadness and their own disappointments in life. And, life is lovely and wonderful and amazing. And it's also just filled with a lot of hard work.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, too, is really difficult to try and look at a situation from someone else's perspective. Because you're just in your own brain all day long.
Yeah.
But that is definitely, I think, a skill that I've gained.
You said something earlier that it's easy to look at other people's stuff and go, oh, I have the answers. And you're like, sometimes when you're in the thick of it, it's clear as mud. Mm-hmm. What's interesting is that we only can look into other people's lives with our own view from our own perspective, right? Mm-hmm. We don't have all the information. We don't have their life experiences. We don't have the experiences of the other people involved. So we can think that we might know the solutions or the answers for other people, but really there's no way we can ever really know, right? Because we're all living these very unique lives with very unique lenses, our
Life
own
is
perspective.
personal.
Life is very personal, very personal. So tell us, where do we go from here? You've got teenagers that are getting cops called on, and the house is just feeling a lot of tension, and there's not a lot of peace, and there's children in your home that are fearful, and there's other children in the home that are being angry and outbursting. And
I think everyone was fearful.
yeah.
I think also being just fearful of, you have this angst and anxiety and anger going on inside and not even knowing why. So that was really hard. Like I had said before, that I spent a lot of time praying and seeking divine answers, and I had to be really quiet and really listen. But I think when you take the time to really plan things out in your mind and take the time to meditate and think on things, that the answers really can come. And it's answers that I think for me were totally unexpected. The number one answer that I came to was that this huge realization that I am the only person I have any control over. I'd spent, a long time trying to control this, trying to control that, trying to make stuff happen. And also, I'm sure when people have tried to control you throughout your life, you don't appreciate it.
Well, you know how well that works for anyone with me.
Yeah, it's so hard because there again, through my whole story, you just want to feel like there's something in your life you have control over. And at the end of the day, you are the only person you have any control over. So also some of the answers that I received was that I was to stop confronting whoever was out of control. If somebody got hurt physically or emotionally, I was not to intervene as far as yelling and get out of here and whatever. I was just to scoop up whoever was injured and tell that person that I love them and give them a hug and tell them I am so sorry that happened to you. And then to keep them by my side until they felt better. And this was transformative because it changed the entire dynamic in our house. It also went against every mama bear instinct that I have. And, those instincts are strong. You see some injustice happening and, you got to swoop in there and fix all the things. And I stopped doing that. That was really hard. Because I stopped yelling, there was less yelling at our house. Because I wasn't doling out consequences left and right, there was less animosity. And just slowly the dynamic in our home started to change. And I wasn't always good at it. There were a few times I fell back and then I was sorry and reminded as to why I wasn't doing those things anymore. And we mentioned a little bit ago that we have 6 beautiful children together. And I have to just tell you that I am really pleased that not a single one of them is in jail. That's kind of
Small
a big
victory.
deal.
Small victories. Actually, that's a big victory. And I have to say, the one child in particular is able to provide his own living and care for himself, and
very well.
Very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also, he's also spent a lot of time with Dave. And I think that was transformative. Dave was able to just day in, day out, being in the details of all of the life. It's made a big difference. So
poor Dave. He has so much on his shoulders.
Okay, Linda, so we've already talked about what you think resilience is or was as you went through widowhood and things. We've heard this story. Now you're in a new marriage. You've got this growing family. What about resilience in step parenting? I know there's a lot of step parents in the world, whether it's from divorce or widowhood or a combination of both. What can you teach us? What have you learned in your time as a stepmom?
Well, I found that there's a lot of really hard days out there, and it's okay to have hard days. And it is okay to give up at the end of the day. You know what? I am done with today. I'm going to go to bed now. And that's it. And the next day, I think, I don't know, just part of my nature. I'm obsessively, compulsively myself. I would wake up the next morning and then I would have a thought come to me. You know what? Fine. You're going to do that. I'm going to do this now. And so I just would start, I was constantly coming up with ideas and thoughts and plans and things. And I think if you really keep the perspective that kind of hard not to make it all about yourself. Well, I'm trying really hard to be a good stepmom. Well, I'm trying really hard to make a fun time in your life. And to really just kind of take their perspective and see what they want to do. I also think it's not always vital to do what they want to do.
So tell us any other takeaways you have on resilience or life or perspective or being the stepmom, the wife, the person, the widow, the remarried, anything, any other gems of knowledge from your years of experience?
I have some really big thoughts about being a step parent or a healthy adult or just a regular person. Not everything in your life needs to involve or surround the children. I think I kind of went into things thinking, oh, everything needs to be a family activity, or we can't go here because we don't have the kids today. We'll have to wait until they come back. And that's not true. They may feel left out a little bit here and there, but your life is still happening. And so it's okay to continue on just doing things. It's important to show them what a healthy, normal relationship looks like. Dave and I, we love each other so much that it might be uncomfortable for other people to be around. We are constantly hugging and kissing in the kitchen, wherever we are. We hold hands. We just really enjoy each other's personalities. I think that it's really important to continue your hobbies and activities that bring you joy, independent of anyone else. That's something that Dave and I actually talk about a lot in our lives, even today, is we're kind of fascinated how many marriages there are where people feel like they can't do something without their spouse. They have to have, or get permission to do something. And that just boggles his mind. What do you mean you have to get permission for that? If I'm going to do something, I go do the thing, whatever I'm going to go do.
Right.
In our garage, we have cars, a lot of cars, as I mentioned before. And we're fortunate enough to put a lift in the garage. And so Dave constantly has something on the lift. We had a Corvette on there that he was repainting, and an amazing color that he's very begrudging of this color now because it takes forever to do. Then he had to take that off because he has this truck that he's been putting new, I have all the wrong words, pipes, tubes, turbos,
Mufflers,
cutting things off, changing the body panels, giving this a new paint job, realigning lines. The guy is in the garage all the time. And I am not begrudging of that because that is his happy place. But on the flip side of that, one thing that I am super grateful for is if I say, I'm going to go out with some friends, he doesn't bat an eye. Have a good time. He tells me to have a great time. He loves that I go and do things for myself.
In dating, I have to say, I miss that about John. I'm very confused by people of today's mentality because men will say things like, they'll list out all their hobbies and they're like, I'm hoping to find like a hobby buddy like for these things. And I'm like, I'm not going to go camping with you. Like, if you want to go camping, I never went skiing with John. I'm like, have a good time. See ya. Like, I never felt like I was missing out. I didn't care. And I find it odd. And I think it's because the men that we're married to, it's just an odd thing for me.
They're independent.
Yeah, they're independent and I'm independent. And it's like, why do we have to? We can share our life together when we're at home together, but the rest of the time, can we just live life?
It's totally fine for you to go and do something. See, and I have learned independence.
Yeah.
That did not come naturally to me. And I was like, what? You don't want to go with me to the grocery store, Dave? I have to go by myself? Now I'm like, I don't want you to come. You will hurry me along. And I want to look at things.
Yeah.
I think that it's also really important to continue to date your spouse.
Yeah.
I think it's important
100%.
to date yourself. Mm-hmm. That's one of my favorite activities. I love me. At the end of the day, you have to live with yourself, and all this turmoil that I've gone through, and not just my stepkids, my own biological kids. Mm-hmm. I love all of them. But at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself and whatever you are carrying around on the inside. And if you don't like it, that is not someone else's responsibility to make you feel better. It's not someone else's responsibility to make you happy. That is your job to figure that out. And it's only work. It's just work that you have to do. And if you do choose to do that work, it's everyone that benefits. The benefits of that are just so far reaching. And then you get to have peace of mind, because peace of mind also comes with a lightness of heart. I spent a lot of years emotionally beating myself up, and I tell you, I was brutal to myself. And I don't do that anymore. I just want to be nice to me. And I have learned to just forgive myself quickly, because I know how ugly it is to not.
That is beautiful. Those are great.
I wrote down like everything you just said, and you and I must have some similarities at like our base personality, because so much of this is so powerfully resonating with me. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you.
I just want to be nice to myself. I just want to be nice.
You know, there was a point where I was homeschooling my children. And I did this for a few years. And somebody called me up one day and they were like, "How's it going?" And I said, "Well, it's going all right. I'm being really nice to myself. The kids are mad. They wish I'd be nice to them." So learned a few things.
Let's be nice to each other.
I love that song, Megan Trainor. I don't know about you, but I love me. That song is awesome. Sometimes I'll put it on and I'll just sing it. But I have to say, it was actually recently, a couple months ago, maybe less than that, I had this profound experience, and I was looking in a mirror, and I really caught my eyes, but I saw myself not just the reflection of who I am. I saw myself for the first time. And I realized I really love me. And I really experienced that self-love. And I've waited 52 years. Like, I thought I liked myself. I thought I was okay with who I was. But I had this moment just recently that I really understood that I love me. I love who I am. And I love all of the stories that have happened to me, the things that have happened that have shaped me, the way that I wasn't always great. I didn't always handle things right or well. And yet I give myself permission to be human. And I decided, you know what? I'm pretty cool. And I really like who I am. And it's okay. It's okay if nobody likes who I am.
Well, you don't have to be perfect at everything.
Yeah.
Or even really good.
Yeah. And so it's a profound thing to get there. And I really think that probably most people have not really experienced a moment of self-love. I literally was able to feel love for myself in my heart, like palpably feel love for myself. And it was life-changing to me.
I love that.
So it was amazing. I'm glad that you brought that up. And I can testify you've always had a healthy dose of confidence, of your humor. You're not ashamed of where you come from, who you are. There's no shame about any part of you. And I have always found that just really tender and beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm super glad that you're in my family. And you know, one thing I've experienced a lot on widow groups, I don't know if you're a part of any. Did you ever grow up? That was like before the internet, really.
Well, the internet was around, but I'm the kind of person that I like to worry about things for other people. And so
Right.
I'm collecting all these things, and then I became a widow, and I was like, "Oh, here's your problems back." I can't. I couldn't handle listening to anybody else's problems. So no, I didn't join any widow groups.
Yeah.
I totally do a thing like that now.
Yeah. Well, so being a part of them is interesting. And sometimes you just have to take a break because it's just too much. But one thing that you triggered in me, just having you here today and thinking about your story and thinking about Dave, he is our last standing Scharf male. The oldest boy, Dan, died several years before John passed away. And
He died right after we got married, actually.
Yeah.
Before we had our wedding open house at your house.
Right.
I think it was that same weekend he died.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
It was. Because the family was at our place when we got word. And that was just a tragic time. My husband took that very difficult. Dan was more like a father to him than his own father, as far as really being influential in my husband's life. And so that was really difficult. Then John's father died just shortly after John passed away, on the day that Brent Taylor was killed.
Oh, same day.
Same day. So we only have David Scharf left as patriarch Scharf male of our family, and he's the youngest. But you know,
But what a stud.
But what a stud. Aren't you glad you have him?
He is amazing, and he is a stud. And I have to say, I don't know when the last time I stopped by your house was. You guys had me over for something. Anyway, it's been a while. And I walked into the shop, and the garage has been really transformed into a shop, and it's been expanded and whatnot from the last time I had been there. And he's got it all stickered up, and very much like his brother. John had a shop that he used to have on one of the properties that we owned. And I walk in there, and I feel a lot of mixed emotions, I guess. And then I hear this voice, and it sounds like my husband. And all of a sudden, David comes around the door, and he's standing there, and I just burst into tears. It just was so much. I just burst into absolute tears, and he just came and gave me the biggest hug and held me, and I just, snottily cried all over his shoulder, and he let me. But he's so good. He's such a good man. I love him so much, and I'm glad that you get to have him.
Yeah, me too.
It's nice. They have a similar voice. It's nice having Dave in the world.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for coming on and sharing these stories with us. We could do so many different stories with the challenges in life that you've had, and the fact that you are able to just constantly have a good attitude. You do get things done with things at night, like you said, but you are the kind of person that when you wake up in the morning, it's like, today's a new day. And you hop out of bed and you hit the ground running, and you're like, what can I do?
Surprise, I thought of something else.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Surprise, I thought of something else. That's exactly what it is. I love you. I love talking to you. Thank you you've listened to me rattle off in my tears and in my grief, and you've seen me at my very worst and when I wasn't handling grief well at all. A lot of people will say to me, you're so strong. You've done this so well. And it's like, oh, yeah, you didn't call me on the night that I was nearly blacked out drunk, or when I was blacked out drunk. Those were not the nights that I was on Facebook.
Well, and I think sometimes those comments that people make, you are so strong, you are handling this so well, that also puts an unrealistic expectation on your shoulders.
And for everyone else,
I have to do this strong and well.
I had to get to the point where I'm like, I have to let go of this. I am not doing well.
When are we just going to start telling people they're mediocre?
Yeah.
You know what?
You're doing a great job being mediocre.
Linda, you're doing a great job limping through this.
I have loved these 2 episodes now that we've been able to share with you. I loved your realness and how you'll just say, sometimes it wasn't going well and sometimes you really struggled. I love your positive attitude. I think we can all agree that is contagious. And we're just grateful that you would spend a couple hours with us over these 2 episodes to share. And we wish you the best in the new adventures that you're currently facing. Like Michelle said, that could be several other episodes. To all of our listeners, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for listening. If you get a minute, go ahead, give us a rating and a review wherever you find your podcast. And if you or someone you know has a real story about real life that you're willing to share, contact us on Facebook at Relentlessly Resilient or Instagram at Relentlessly Resilient Podcast. We'd love to share your story as well.
And whatever you do today, remember to be kind. You have no idea the trials others are dealing with. Have a great day.